Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 19th of October, now it's 11 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for a day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment, and I will start with Ukraine and special military operation, if I may, and a short summary of the situation on the Ukrainian battlefield. According to Russian media outlets, there were no significant changes on any of the sectors of the front line during the previous 12 to 24 hours. Operational pause is somewhat holding, although, of course, there are artillery duels between the sides and local scale reckoning force operations or local scale offensive operations that have no influence on overall situation on any of the sectors of the front at this point. Well, it's a rainy season, by the way, and as I said many times before, it's highly unlikely that we will see large-scale offensive operations until winter from now on, although, of course, these local-scale operations will continue, and time to time, Russian forces that have initiative all along the front line will probably manage to improve their positions and also to establish control over the several settlements on line of contact. But yet again, when it comes to large-scale offensive operations or decisive actions, in my understanding, we will see that kind of developments during the winter time. But as I said, there are some changes, local-scale changes on the front line, and I will mention several areas. First of all, Kherson region, where Ukrainian forces did try to establish yet another bridgehead on the left bank of the Dnieper river, but according to Russian media outlets, Russian forces were monitoring situation and delivered decisive blow to Ukrainian forces that did try to cross the Dnieper river and establish their positions on the left bank. Vast majority of Ukrainian forces were neutralized, and whoever did manage to survive are now trying to hide on the bank of the river or retreat to the right bank, which is still under control of Ukrainian forces. Nothing in a significant scale that can influence overall situation on this sector of the front line. But by the way, I remind you that military summary channel, Dima, host of this channel, expects significant activization of Ukrainian forces in coming days, and maybe that's exactly what will happen. Although me personally, I'm quite skeptical that Kiev regime will be able to pull off any more or less significant scale offensive operation. In my understanding, to regain some attention from Western masters from their Western masters, Zelensky and his associates will try to conduct some false flag operation or provocation and then blame Russia for it. Kiev regime did such a criminal stuff previously, not just once. So that's my take on this situation, that to regain some initiative in the Western public, in the Western media, or among Western so-called elites, Zelensky's regime will come up with some provocation. Maybe in the territories that they have control over, or maybe they will try something in the direction of Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. I cannot know for sure, but in my understanding, it's highly unlikely that Kiev regime will pull off some significant offensive operations, and it's highly likely that some provocations, Kiev regime will conduct some provocations. But let's see, time will tell. But overall situation in Kherson region is under full Russian control. Russian military intelligence is controlling situation, and any movement from Ukrainian side is monitored, and whenever it's necessary, Russian side is taking out these Ukrainian suicidal units basically one by one. I wonder how long Ukrainian military personnel will continue to obey these crazy orders that they are receiving from their commanders or Kiev regime itself. How many of them gonna die in these suicidal, meaningless local scale offensives to realize that something is going very wrong for them. But anyway, let's continue. When it comes to Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sectors of the front line, it's a Russian side, by the way, that are conducting some local scale offensive operations. Even though I expect that decisive actions from Russian side, decisive actions will be undertaken by Russian forces during the winter time. Next several weeks, I do expect that Russian forces will try to encircle Ukrainian grouping of forces in Orekhov bridgehead. On daily basis, we are receiving some reports that Russian side is quite active in this area. Some reckoning force operations are conducted. And I guess that's the preparation of the ground to encircle, to create cauldron, basically, for these Ukrainian forces there. When it comes to South Donetsk, the direction or southern flank of Donetsk sector from Vremevsky, Lech, Orsely, and up to Avdiivka. Here, it's still Russian side that are conducting offensive operations initiative all along the front line in Russian hands. But at this point, we don't have any reports about significant successful offensive operations. I guess Russian side is just trying to reinforce new positions that they gained during the previous local scale offensive operations in previous week. And once they will be ready, and once they will receive probably additional reinforcement, munition, and military equipment, they will probably continue their offensive all along this front line from Avdiivka to Marinka. But at this point, nothing is happening in the scale that can be called a breakthrough. Then when it comes to northern sectors of the front line, it's usual stuff, artillery duels between the sides and occasional local scale close range battles between the sides. So as I said, overall operational pause is holding despite these local scale skirmishes, and it will stay this way until winter time, in my understanding. And dear friends, during previous night, Russian forces conducted some minor, I will say, drone and missile strikes on the logistical and military infrastructure of Kiev regime, and there were some reports in Russian Telegram channels that explosions were heard in Nikolaev direction, in Odessa direction, in the Dnipropetrovsk direction, Sumy and Kharkov directions. But yet again, this missile and drone strike was not in the large scale, and we cannot call it Russian retaliation for a recent strike by Kiev regime with ATACMS missiles on Russian airfield in Berdyansk area. And when it comes to that exact strike of Kiev regime on Berdyansk, some additional news is available now, and according to reports that we can see on internet, during that strike, Kiev regime did manage to destroy basically 2 Russian helicopters and damage 7 helicopters. According to some other reports, more helicopters were destroyed, not just 2. But overall, we are talking about some minor, I will say, operational disturbance, really, for Russian side, because even if, I don't know, 5, 7, 10 helicopters were destroyed, and what? I mean, and what? Will it change anything on the front line? Not really, because it's only a matter of hours, I guess, and Russia will send additional helicopters in this area. Probably Probably this time Russian side will be a little cautious and they will locate their helicopters somewhere in Rostov region or maybe in Crimea. But strategically, this attack and strike did not change nothing really. It's bad news for Russian side, but nothing extraordinary really. Things happened during the large-scale military operations. So, and by the way, what is interesting, according to some reports, and even Scott Ritter, by the way, US military expert, did spoke about it, Ukrainian side used 7 ATACMS missiles during this strike, and Russian air defense systems did manage to shut down 5 of them, and only two reach airfield in Berdyansk direction. And well, now Russian side has information, good enough information, I guess, of trajectory, trace, and characteristics of these missiles. And whenever Kiev regime will try to use those ATACMS missiles next, Russian air defense systems probably will be much more ready. Even though to shut down 5 missiles from 7, that's I mean, I don't think anybody will call it a bad result, isn't it? So that's been said, this is it for short summary of the situation on the battlefield. Of course, if there is any additional news, I will report about on my Telegram and in the next updates. And before I continue with some additional news, let me remind you, if I made this project with several channels, including this one on YouTube or Rumble, also on Telegram, exists solely thanks to support of members of our community, and I will be immensely grateful if you will also consider to support with small donations through PayPal, buy me a coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page, on which, by the way, I do upload some extra content on regular basis. Like yesterday, for example, as you know, I was in Moscow for some personal business, and I did use that opportunity to make some extra content for Patreon. It's an informal talk, a news summary, and also I did try to highlight some areas of Moscow during the autumn. Hopefully Patreon community will will find that video interesting, and you can also watch it, by the way. It's for a change I made that video available for everybody who wants to watch, so you can click on the link of Patreon under this video in description box or in the pinned comment, and go straight to my page, and latest video, you can watch latest video without interactions, and you can have some ideas what type of extra content I do on Patreon. And well, let's continue now. And RIA Novosti is reporting that well, Russian armed forces did manage to repel Ukrainian local scale offensive in Kherson region, exactly what I just spoke about a few minutes ago. The Ukrainian side did try to cross Dnieper River, but quite unsuccessfully. Russian side was ready for such a development. And by the way, I did share on my Telegram this morning this video, for example, where fast boat, Ukrainian fast boat, is trying to, with crew, trying to hide somewhere after unsuccessful attempt to cross Dnieper, but well, Russian side did manage to strike that boat, and then this boat began to, do some circles on the water. Probably entire crew was severely winded or neutralized, and they were unable to continue. They lost control over the boat. That's why I say, by the way, that these guys are suicidal, though. They are conducting suicidal operations by trying to cross Dnieper River and establish foothold on the left bank. How long it will take before they will realize that they've been used as a cannon fodder, I mean, you don't have to be genius for God's sake to realize that. But anyway, let's continue. And RIA Novosti also reporting about strikes that Russian side conducted during the previous night. And in this particular case, RIA Novosti reported, based on Ukrainian media, that in Dnipropetrovsk, by the way, some explosions were heard, and Dnipropetrovsk is here. That's Dnipropetrovsk, by the way, on the Dnipro River. It's only a matter of time when this city will also become under full Russian control, but at this point, still Kyiv regime, Zelensky and his Nazi and criminal associates and terrorist associates are controlling this city, unfortunately. Let's continue with some other news. And well, Biden is back in media with his attempts to steal additional tens of billions of dollars from US taxpayers. And this time, according to NBC, by the way, Biden and his criminal associates, his criminal administration, is intending to demand from Congress or from US lawmakers, if we can call them those corrupt criminals lawmakers. Biden intends to receive 100 billion, by the way, 100 billion, from which 60 billion will be for Ukraine. That's according to NBC News. So it seems like Biden administration will try at least to combine support for Israel, support for Taiwan and Ukraine in one package, and this way try to receive this additional 60 billion for Kyiv regime, from which, by the way, of course, US military industrial complex will receive, and corrupt US politicians, including Biden's family, Biden's incredibly corrupt family, will probably receive vast part. And of course, Zelensky will steal some more, and eventually Ukraine itself will receive from 60 billion, maybe, I don't know, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million. Who knows? Maybe they will steal it all, because this is one of the final paychecks for Biden's administration, for these corrupt US politicians and US military-industrial complex when it comes to Ukrainian story. So they will try to use this final opportunity to steal as much as they can, as much as they possibly can. But let's see. US congressmen are not everyone is happy with this idea of Biden's administration to combine support for Israel, Taiwan, and Ukraine, and maybe they will have some say in this issue. Although I think it's highly likely that eventually US taxpayers will be left out of some additional 60 billion. Just imagine how much good can be done in US for 60 billion, man. But you know. Anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that New York Times did write an article that, according to some sources, the New York Times has US supply Kyiv regime with only 20 ATACMS missiles. And previously, by the way, Associated Press did also write news information about these ATACMS missiles, and they said that according to their sources, Ukraine only received 12 ATACMS missiles. So it's 20 or 12. Kyiv regime already used 7. And well, I guess it's only a matter of time when all 12 or 20 will be used, and they will demand additional missiles, this type of missiles. And it's interesting what US gonna do, what they will say. Will they refuse? I don't know. I don't think so. Until Biden's administration, or until Western so-called elites will finally distance themselves from Kyiv regime, which will happen once NATO member states will try to establish control of the western regions of that failed state. Until that time, they are basically forced to deliver money and weapons for Zelensky. That's how it is. But anyway, Russian ambassador in US, Anatoly Antonov, if I'm not mistaken, yes, Anatoly Antonov, did made a comment about this ATACMS missiles, and he said that Russian side will, of course, respond on this new level of escalation from US, and there will be some consequences, according to Russian ambassador, although he did not specify what consequences he meant. And by the way, Putin also did spoke about ATACMS missiles. As you know, he was in China. Maybe he's still in China. And he was asked about ATACMS missiles, and he said that, well, these weapons will not have any significant influence on the outcome of this conflict or on over the situation on the front line. But Russian side will, of course, make all the necessary decisions to minimize risks that are coming from these weapons, and well, also no specifications, basically just a light comment, I will say. But once Putin will came back in Russia, maybe he is already in Russia, by the way, because that One Belt, One Road initiatives conference did take place from 17 to 18 of October. Today is 19, so maybe Putin already left China and he is in Russia. And if that's the case, then today or tomorrow, probably Russian side will conduct some retaliatory strike on military and logistical infrastructure of Kiev regime for ATACMS strike on airfield in Berdyansk. And I have only one question: will this time Putin authorizes strikes on decision-making centers in Kiev or Lvov? That's the only question I have at this point. I doubt that he will authorize such strikes, but let's see. Let's see. For whatever reasons, these terrorists and Nazis and mass murderers that are running Kiev regime, they are untouchable. I don't understand why. We did see in previous many decades, by the way, how US is acting when US is involved in conflict. And what they first of all do is they are taking off heads of the enemies. That's what they do. They are hunting down leaders of the enemies, because that's the right approach. That's the right approach. Overall, US military campaigns may not be such a success story as they will wish for, but at least they were successful to take down leadership of the enemies, which is, of course, has political consequences, moral consequences on enemies. But well, Putin has a very different approach, and for whatever reason, Zelensky is not hiding in somewhere in the bunker as a rat, as he's supposed to do. And not just him, but all the so-called leaders of Kiev regime. They are living their life while sending to the death hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian citizens, and while destroying Ukraine and Ukrainian society. And I don't get this, man. I don't understand why this is happening. But anyway, let's continue. Okay, maybe Putin has some agreement with someone, like former Prime Minister of Israel said once, that Putin did promise him that Zelensky will be safe, at least from Russian side. Okay, Putin promised to, keep Zelensky safe. But what about other leaders of Kiev's terrorist and Nazi regimes? Did Putin promise safety to them also? Why? I don't understand. But anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that, well, new topic, by the way, Palestine-Israeli conflict. And, well, TASS news agency is reporting that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made statement about this escalation between Palestine and Israel, and he said that it's a quite high risk is quite high that this confrontation between Israel and Palestine will spread all over the region, and eventually entire region will be destabilized, especially because some forces in the West and Israel are not stopping to blame Iran for everything, really. And if Iran is under attack, then, well, that's definitely at least a regional conflict with the consequences for entire world, not just political, geopolitical, but also economical consequences for and devastation for entire world. Well, hardly anyone can argue with Lavrov in this case. As I said quite a few times before, I don't think US did send its like 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, also additional fighter bombers to the Middle East, and some amphibious forces, just to send some messages to Hezbollah and Iran, or West Bank, by the way. I don't think this much force was needed to send simple message for third parties to stay away. 1 aircraft carrier will do the job, for sure. And because US is increasing its naval force in Mediterranean, its amphibious capabilities, also its ground forces in the Middle East, because UK just recently, yesterday if I'm not mistaken, did make statement that UK's officials that they will send their navy ships, and because France may follow suit and send its aircraft carrier. I don't know, they have 1 only, Charles de Gaulle if I'm not mistaken. They may send their aircraft carrier also, or some additional ships, maybe even main power. After all, Macron's presidency is so devastating for France that now French troops are forced to leave African states, and well, Macron can redeploy them in the Middle East using this crisis in between Palestine and Israel. And well, something has been in preparations for sure. And when one can only hope that these idiots in the leadership of Western states and idiots that are running Western world, the so-called elites of the West, will not provoke regional conflict. One can only hope for that, but questions still remains, because why they sending so much military equipment and personnel in this region? For what exactly reason? Anyway, let's continue. Biden, as you know, by the way, Biden was in Israel, and yesterday afternoon, media reported that Biden claimed that Hamas attack was worse than 9/11 attack. Both attacks were horrible. It was a crime against humanity, no doubt about that. But why on earth Biden has to say anything like that? I mean, for what reason? I mean, US citizens probably did listen this statement and they were quite upset, because why you have to choose which one is worst? Both terrorist attacks were horrifying. Both terrorist attacks on civilians were horrifying, and atrocities was committed by terrorists. Something is wrong with Biden, by the way, and his speech writers, for sure. maybe he was trying, or his speechwriter was trying to highlight that US is so much right next to Israel, but for God's sake, we all know this anyway. There is no need for such stupid statements. And this is definitely, I don't know, man, what this is, man. When you are talking about some horrific terrorist attack, you cannot probably say one is worse, one is not that. All are worse and never should happen. And I mean, what kind of approach is that? I just don't understand this. And by the way, while Biden was making some statements in support of Israel, while being there, Jewish community in Washington organized protest movement against Israeli atrocities. And we should always remember, by the way, and keep in mind that it's not just Hamas terrorists that committed atrocities against Israeli civilians. It's Israeli armed forces also are committing atrocities against Palestinian civilians. So there is no angels in when we are talking about Hamas and the ADF. They're both committing atrocities, war crimes and crimes against humanity. And one atrocity do not justify another one, isn't it? Fact that Hamas committed those terrorists, man, that all terrorists that committed any atrocity against civilians supposed to be eliminated 100%. But fact that these terrorists committed this horrible attack on Israeli civilians, not justifying actions of Israel when they are targeting civilians and killing civilians, isn't it? One atrocity never justifies another. But for whatever reason, some people do not get this. Some people think Israel has right for everything and anything. And this is not correct, by the way. Israel should act as a civilized state. And Israel does not act this way. And never did, basically, since Israel was founded in 47 or, whenever. And by the way, funny enough, yesterday I did saw some comment that someone did call me anti-Semite because I don't support Israelis this war crimes and actions of this criminal Netanyahu and his government. And I delayed that comment. I don't give a damn. And this is Russia, by the way. You can censor people in the West by calling him anti-Semite. It did not work in Russia because we didn't give a damn what some fascists. And if you are in support of Netanyahu, you are fascist, by the way. And no doubt about that, you are fascist, clear fascist. And we don't really care what fascist is gonna call us, And when it comes to anti-Semitism, since when criticizing state become anti-Semitism? It's a propaganda of these criminals that are running Israel and their supporters in the West. They come up with this idea that if you are criticizing Israel state, then you are anti-Semite. Why? Where is the connection, for God's sake? And to prove this, by the way, we have a next news. Jewish Voice, that's organization in US, did organize protest action against Israeli atrocities, against Israeli military occupation and Israeli conduct towards Palestinians. And according to these organizations, more than 10,000 people participate in this demonstration in Washington, and hundreds of people, by the way, went straight into Capitol. That was second, how we call it in US? Insurrection, or, And this photo, by the way, is from inside the Capitol, if I'm not mistaken. And a significant number of these people are Jewish. And they are protesting against atrocities, against the Israeli government, because they are committing crimes against humanity. Are these Jewish people anti-Semites? By this logic, that if you criticize Israel, you are anti-Semite, then what these Jewish people are then? Anti-Semites? Really? Unbelievable. And I'm not talking about the fact that my wife has Jewish heritage from mom's side and father's side, and I probably most likely have Jewish heritage from my mom's side, because her surname sounds like Georgian Jewish surnames. Although we are Christians, my mom is Christian, relatives of my wife are Christians, but still they have heritage, Jewish heritage, and how can I be anti-Semite, for God's sake, man? I don't know. But this stupid propaganda, man, I mean, in West, this kind of stuff works, I guess. And they are trying, these fascists are trying to silence people by calling them anti-Semite. But here in Russia, you know what? We can, we can say whatever we want, really. As long as you are correct and you are right, you are right. And no one can do nothing about it. Let's continue. By the way, when it comes to this news, according to RIA Novosti, 500 people was arrested by police. And this march, this protest was organized once again by this organization, Jewish Voice. And after all, by the way, I remind you that one of the biggest names on internet when it comes to independent media are Canadian journalist, award-winning journalist Aaron Mate, and also Max Blumenthal from Grey Zone, by the way. Many of you are familiar, I guess, with Grey Zone channel. And these guys are also Jewish. So this fascist gonna call them anti-Semites also? I don't know. Let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that Hamas, these terrorists, clearly terrorist organization, by the way. They are terrorists, and it's very unfortunate for Palestinians that these kind of terrorists are running that corner. And they committed unbelievable atrocities, and they should pay price for it. But terrorists, by the way, not civilians, for God's sake. But anyway, at least for now, these terrorists are in charge there, and they are saying that they just don't have weapons that are capable of killing hundreds of people at once. Well, they are very sorry probably about this. But I guess this is true, isn't it? And of course, we are talking about now this tragic story when hospital was hit in Gaza Strip, and according to reports, from 500 to 800 civilians died, and many more were wounded. And well, it's not just these Hamas bastards that are saying that they don't have weapons that are capable of killing just for such a destruction. They don't have such weapons. Military experts and journalists and many others, by the way, are also saying very same, because we all see explosions of missiles from Hamas. They can barely make a hole in the wall. How they gonna kill hundreds of people? Those type of quasi rockets. But anyway, RIA Novosti is reporting that well, this war tourism is continuous, and this time UK's Prime Minister is planning to visit Israel. I mean, I guess in this critical time, Netanyahu and Israeli officials probably have some other business to do other than talk to these individuals, like these tourists. Biden, now Sunak, Scholz was just a day or two ago also in Israel, and many others, by the way. Well, what the hell is going on, really? Is it normal? It's definitely not normal. The Israeli government is supposed to be busy to deal with this crisis by looking for ways of out of this escalation. But in reality, what we see is that these tourists are going into Israel one by one or collectively, and are making statements that yes, they stand with Israel, they stand with Netanyahu, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. Who cares, man? And how you can say you stand with Israel now when they are committing atrocities? Government, by the way, and state. Yet again, if you notice, I never use words Jewish whenever I'm talking about politics. I'm always saying Israelis, and I'm saying Israeli government because it has everything to do with the government and government policies, and nothing to do with what people believe in what religion. And it's nobody's business who believes in what, isn't it? So I don't like to talk about religion stuff, and you know, that's why I'm trying to avoid this terminology. And after all, by the way, Jewish people are all around the world, and you cannot blame my relative Jews for atrocities that this Netanyahu committing, isn't it? Can you? They have nothing to do with Israel. They've never been into Israel, man, and have no plans to go there. Or maybe they have, I don't know. But I guess I make my point. RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, unfortunately, about 1,000 Russian citizens are as hostages now in blockaded Gaza Strip, according to RIA Novosti, and official representative of Russia into UN. And well, it's not just Russian citizens, by the way. People from all around the world are trapped in Gaza now, and at this point, at least, what we know is that Israel is not allowing this blockade to be lifted. So entire Gaza Strip is under strict blockade. No one can go in, no one can go out. Only, and after some time, by the way, I'm quite sure Benjamin Netanyahu and his government will come up with the idea that, you know, people from Gaza Strip can go to Israel, or maybe they will open some humanitarian corridor. Egypt, by the way, not Israel. It's only a matter of time when Israeli government will force these people to go to Egypt, which is bordering Gaza, or maybe some humanitarian corridor will be open between Gaza Strip and the West Bank, so that refugees can go to the West Bank. But when it comes to Gaza Strip itself, I have more and more reasons, more and more indicators to believe that Netanyahu's government has a plan to depopulate Gaza Strip from locals completely, and then integrate this territory into the Israel. Establish permanent occupation. Так, let's continue now, and well, we have TASS news agency's report that according to German officials, they will prioritize weapons deliveries to Israel first, whenever some orders are going in to Germany, and well, that's also no surprises. Zelensky and his associates not really gonna like this, but nobody ever did care about them in the first place. And now, of course, Zelensky and his bunch of criminals, they are forgotten by many, by big time. Well, some other topics, by the way. Let me check how long is this video. 45 minutes. Well, okay, just the headlines. So TASS news agency is reporting that South Korea, by the way, threatened Russia with sanctions if Russia will transfer some technologies, some military-grade technologies to North Korea. Well, I don't think Russia will transfer some military-grade technologies to North Korea. If Russia wanted that, this will be done a long time ago, and no South Korea, no any other country will stop Moscow. But why? In this case, this statement was made by Minister of South Korea, strange name his ministry has, Minister for Unification of Korea. That's how this ministry sounds like. But anyway, high-ranking South Korean official did come up with such a statement that they will sanction Russia, man. Man, these people are forgetting, man, their place. They're truly losing touch with reality, man. And can you imagine reaction of Russian officials when they hear that, you know, South Korea is gonna now impose some sanctions? I mean, really? They will laugh, man. Everybody will laugh. What sanctions, man? What you gonna do? So why you making this stupid statement and distracting relationships between the countries? You don't have to do that. Because if Moscow wanted to transfer some military-grade technologies to North Korea, this will already be done, like decades ago. But Moscow did not operate that way. But anyway, let's continue. I do understand there are some fears, maybe in South Korea and some other places in Japan, for example, that Russia will transfer some rocket technologies, let's say, to North Korea for this possible deliveries from North Korea of artillery pieces and artillery munition. But this will not happen, by the way. What Russia will do in exchange of some military weapons or munition that maybe, just maybe, have been delivered to Russia from North Korea, well, Russia will just probably open its borders for North Korean workers. Russia will probably increase some food deliveries to North Korea. Russia will support with other means, but not with the rocket technology, for God's sake. Because if anybody thinks that Moscow really needs Kim Jong-un, leader of North Korea, to have a truly capable to have in his disposal truly capable intercontinental ballistic missiles or just ballistic missiles that can be armed with nukes, is very mistaken. How can you believe this, by the way? North Korea is bordering Russia also. And not Russia, not China really are not very keen to see increase in military capabilities of North Korea. Just because, you know, today you may have idea that, you know, it's everything is predictable when it comes to North Korea, but tomorrow things may change, and when you are dealing with such a regime like in North Korea, you can never know what may happen tomorrow. But anyway, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that some source, high-ranking Russian officials, spoke to RIA Novosti, And well, RIA Novosti is not disclosing name of this official, but well, according to this report, Moscow is very unhappy with the statements that Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan made in Euro Parliament on 17th of October. And this source, this high-ranking Russian official, even called this speech of Pashinyan provocative and anti-Russian. And well, I just wanted to share with you this information and highlight once again that unfortunately relationships between Moscow and Yerevan are deteriorating almost on daily basis. Moscow is very painfully receiving these messages from Yerevan when Armenian officials are criticizing Russian peacekeepers. I remind you, by the way, that Russian peacekeepers died during a recent escalation in Nagorno-Karabakh. Russia very painfully receives any anti-Russian statement from Armenia because, you know, Armenia is seen as a strategic partner, as a friendly nation, and that's why Russian officials constantly are mentioning that despite difficulties in relationships between official Moscow and Yerevan, relationships between the people should never deteriorate. Politics should not play significant role in the relationships between the people, because that will be, you know, conflict between the societies. That will be true tragedy. But when it comes to relationships between officials of Russia and Armenia, well, it's bad for Armenia, by the way, first of all, because Armenia did not gain anything with Pashinyan's government. Armenia is just losing. But if citizens of Armenia are happy with such a prime minister and such a government, then it's their country and their choice, and they have to live with consequences of their choices. That's all. Anyway, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that BRICS Bank, by the way, BRICS Bank of Development will give $1 billion credit to Brazil to support Brazil's economical development, which is quite good news in terms that, well, this BRICS organization is not just some gathering of states, but it has some practical tools to support each other also, so that BRICS member states will be able to support each other. And BRICS Bank is one of the such tools. And now we have example how this tool can be used. Brazil needed some assistance, in this case $1 billion, and decision was made quite quickly, I guess, without excess bureaucracy, and Brazil will receive this $1 billion. And very same benefits will have all the other members of BRICS when they will join this organization, new members, when they will join this organization on 1st of January 2024, just in a few months' time. RIA Novosti is reporting that Sechin, head of Russian energy giant company Rosneft, Igor Sechin, did made a prediction that Russia will export to China a record volume of gas in 2023, and according to him, China will probably receive somewhere around 30 billion cubic meters of gas this year from Russia. I remind you that main pipeline that goes from Russia to China now is Siberian Power, or Power of Siberia 1, and fairly soon, in several years' time, Power of Siberia 2 probably will also become operational, and with that pipeline, China will be able to receive additional 50 billion cubic meters of gas every year. So Russia is definitely becoming a major energy supplier for for China, and this dependence of China on Russian energy and Russian commodities will only increase from now on. And that's why both countries have to be very careful, because level of interdependence is just too high, already too high, and this dependence on each other will only increase. So relationships between Russia and China are now have a just whole another meaning, really, for both countries and for stability of entire Indo-Pacific region. And by the way, RIA Novosti is also reporting that while Putin was meeting with have a talk with Xi Jinping, Chinese leader, he did share some information about relationships between Russia and China. He did said that this year trade between Russia and China will reach $200 billion, which is record, by the way. And well, as I just said, this number will also increase significantly year by year basis, exactly because of this constantly increasing interdependence of Russia and China. And this is gonna be last news for today's update. RT is reporting that oil prices spikes as Middle East tensions are rising. Quite understandable, but if now we are talking about some 3% increase, for example, Brent crude did increase nearly 3%. If escalation between Palestine and Israel will spread over the region, and if Iran will get involved in this, or Iran will be attacked, then the entire world is in big trouble, and oil prices probably will reach I don't know, $150 to $200 for a barrel, because it will be physically impossible or almost impossible to conduct shipping in the Persian Gulf. So it will devastate. Such a scenario, such a development will definitely devastate the entire world. And this is it for now. Hopefully you will find this video interesting. And if so, please click that like button. It's 57 minutes. Wow, quite long video. So if you find this video interesting, please click that like button and leave some commentary about any topic you like. And please, if you can, share links to my channel or my videos with your friends on any of the platforms that you are active on. And well, if you think this project, this channel is interesting and deserves to exist, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, buy me a coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You can see links on this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. Have a great day and take care.